Hello and welcome to another AIC video. It's not very often that I get the opportunity to compare two laptops of the same generation from the same manufacturer and be as similarly spec'd as possible while having different CPUs. Either I get one laptop at a time from Lenovo, or I have to buy stuff, and I can't buy everything and keep an inventory of everything, so that makes it kind of hard to be able to do those comparisons. So either I have to look back at videos I've made previously, and there's different software versions and things like that I'm dealing with. Different ambient temperatures even make a pretty big difference in some of the performances you can get. So it's really nice to have two laptops, same generation, different CPUs, but otherwise identical. So on the left we have an HP Elitebook 840 Gen 8. It has an 11th gen Core i5 1135G7. On the right, we have an HP Elitebook 845 Gen 8, and the 5 indicates that it's the AMD model, with the AMD Ryzen 5 Pro 5650U. They both have 16 gigs of RAM. Storage is different on them. The Intel does have 512, and this one, the AMD, only has 256 gigs. Shouldn't matter too much for our benchmarks. There's enough space to do what we need to on the drives, and that should be good enough, I think, for the comparison that we're doing, at least. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the hardware, see what differences there are between the two systems hardware-wise. Then we're going to go through and run the Passmark benchmark performance test that you see in front of you. I did verify they're both up to date to the most recent version, as well as I've done Windows updates to make sure that's up to date to the most recent version. And then we're going to do a handbrake test, and then we're going to do Shadow of Tomb Raider and Cyberpunk benchmarks, since they have built-in benchmarks, and I will make sure they are set to the same settings for both systems. So let's go ahead and proceed from that point. I'm going to record them one at a time, just because I want to make sure I get as good of screenshot of each one. I'm not going to run OBS, just because that does have a pretty significant impact on performance, especially for like gaming and stuff. And I don't want that to cause any issues for us. So we're going to go ahead and run one, then the other, back to back. So I'll run performance tests on this one, performance tests on this one, and handbrake on this one. That way things are as similar as possible. Anyways, when this is done, if you still have any questions, please feel free to leave those questions down below. I do own both of these systems, so hopefully I have them for a little while and can answer those questions. So let's go on with our look at our hardware and then the benchmarks. All right, so the first thing I want to do is take a quick look at the hardware before we get into the actual benchmarking. Sometimes two machines with different processors can be very similar. Sometimes they can be very different. In this case, we're looking at quite similar machines. One thing, I did go ahead and clean them, the fans, and repaste them with thermal paste. This is Noctua. I removed the label so I can actually see how much I have left. I am in need of more. If Noctua wants to sponsor this video by sending me some more thermal paste, I'd love that. Anyways, I'll put a link to it down in the description. So here on the Intel, we have our SSD, we have our RAM. We do have two upgradable RAM slots. We do have a replaceable Wi-Fi slot. We do have a slot for the WAN. So if you wanted to add a wireless chip in here for mobile broadband internet, you can do that, or you might be able to use that for a second SSD. I'm not going to do that. It's not something I actually need, so it's not something I would test for. One thing I definitely notice on here is I am not sure what this chip is right here. If anybody can tell me, let me refocus the camera real quick. So if anybody knows what that chip is, I would love for you to tell me. Let's go ahead and zoom back out. All right, if we come back over to the AMD version, we have a slightly different spec because we don't have the antennas for the WAN, even though we still have the slot. We have that same chip, but it's like on a little daughter board, which I find very interesting. Not sure what that's about. We still have our SSD, but we still have the shield on this one. I'm guessing this one just lost its shield in a previous life. This one, I don't feel like it's ever been opened. So we have a RAM, upgradable Wi-Fi. So overall, nearly identical systems except for the CPU. Even the fan and the heatsink setup is the same between the two. So let's go ahead, and now that we've had a chance to look at the hardware, I have made sure both have been repasted with good clean thermal paste so that the benchmark is as fair as possible. Let's go ahead and boot them up and look at the run some benchmarks. All right, so I've gone through the benchmarking, and I was a bit disappointed in the graphics performance of the AMD. In the past, I've tested a lot of these, and the AMD usually has significantly better performance. And I think, and I might be wrong, but I think I know what the problem is. So on the left, again, we have the Intel. On the right, we have the AMD. If we go into advanced, and then we go into built-in device options, for video memory size, it maxes out at 512 megabytes. Now this was set to auto. I changed it to 512. The Intel was already preset to 512. In fact, it only gives us more options: 64, 128, 256, and 512. The AMD only gives us 256 and 512. On Lenovo's I've had on ThinkPads, I've been able to increase this video memory size. In fact, give me just a second. All right, so I grabbed my other ThinkPad. And so if we go into the video settings, we have the UMA frame buffer size. It's set to auto. But I can change this all the way up to 4 gigs, and this has 16 gigs of RAM. If I put 32 gigs of RAM in here, it'll let me go up to 8 gigs of video RAM, or leave it on auto, and it will actually scale up to as much as that 8 gigs. So I think that we're being hampered by the BIOS on these specific laptops. So if you're looking for a gaming system, this is definitely something worth keeping in mind, because it definitely could have an effect on the performance that you're wanting out of the machine. So two different systems that have the same CPU might have different performance because of that. So definitely something to keep in mind if you are looking to buy one of these. All right, so we've run through the benchmarks, and my conclusion, or at least my original thoughts, were wrong as far as at least these two specific laptops go. Part of me is like, now I need to buy a T14 Gen 2 just to get another AMD with the same CPU, but the ability to change those graphic settings just to see what the difference is. I'm probably not going to do that. Anyways, so the thing that really surprised me is just how much faster the CPU on the AMD is. It's almost, with synthetic benchmarks, what, 40%, almost 50% better. And when we did the video encode, it saved us almost 5 minutes, or it shaved off about 1/3 of the time for the video editing. Now, in my mind, I've always had that the GPU was a better GPU, and I'm going to have to do some more research on that. I think that's because of the ability to change the memory on the ThinkPads. Being able to give it more memory, and it also performs better with faster memory. I'm sure if I put faster memory in here, we get an even better 3D Mark score. It is slightly slower than the Intel, and we saw that in the benchmarks and in the synthetic benchmarks, as well in the actual games benchmarks. But if you're looking for a machine to do work on, I think it's a pretty clear cut that the AMD is the better processor. Neither of these is a gaming laptop. You shouldn't buy these if you're going to be doing gaming. But if you're going to be editing videos, if you're going to be doing coding, if you're going to be doing, I don't know, any number of things that are CPU dependent, which is most things a computer does, the AMD variant is going to be faster. And these laptops cost me about the same amount of money. I think I paid like $10 or $20 less for the Intel one than I did the AMD one. So not a lot of money different. But you're going to save so much time, because if you think about it, if you had that same workflow and you had to edit 5 videos a day, and you save 5 minutes per edit, right? That's half an hour back in your day to do other work or whatever it might be that you need to do. That's pretty significant in my mind. So while I initially had that the AMD was better because of the integrated GPU, which I don't think I'm quite wrong about still. Again, I'm going to have to do more research on that. The the CPU itself is the better CPU, at least in this generation. So definitely an interesting conclusion for me. Hope you guys found this video interesting. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.